The sacred beginning. Understanding the washing of the dead in Islam. Death is the most certain reality of life. Every soul, no matter how powerful, wealthy, or weak, will one day return to its Creator. Islam treats death not as an end, but as the beginning of the eternal journey toward the hereafter. In this journey, the very first stage after a Muslim leaves this world is the preparation of the body for burial. Among the most significant acts of respect is the ritual washing of the deceased, known in Arabic as Ghusl al-Mayyit. This practice is not merely a physical cleaning, but a sacred act filled with meaning, mercy, and obedience to Allah. It connects the living to the dead in a spiritual bond of responsibility and compassion. In the Islamic tradition, the body of a Muslim is considered an amanah, a trust given by Allah, just as a person took care of their body in life. The community is entrusted to care for that body in death. The Prophet Muhammad emphasized dignity and speed in preparing the deceased. The washing is therefore not a simple task of hygiene. It is an act of worship, a sunnah, and a reminder that even in death, the believer deserves honor. The companions of the Prophet observed and recorded how he guided them in handling the dead. From their narrations, Muslims inherited a complete system of funeral rites that has continued for centuries across the world. Washing the body is at the heart of this process. The Quran reminds believers of the sanctity of human life and death, and the Sunnah provides the detailed steps of how to carry out these rites. Together, they form a complete guide that unites the Muslim community in respect for its departed members. The moment of death is a time of immense emotion. For the family members, grief and sorrow are overwhelming. Yet Islam provides guidance so that the community does not fall into despair or cultural superstition. The first act when a Muslim passes away is to gently close their eyes, cover the body with a clean cloth, and begin preparing for the funeral as soon as possible. Delay is discouraged unless necessary, because the deceased deserves to be honored quickly. This urgency is not out of haste but out of mercy, as prolonging burial is considered a form of disrespect. Once the soul has departed, the physical body remains. This body, though lifeless, is still honored because it once carried the soul of a believer who declared the oneness of Allah. The Prophet said that breaking the bone of a dead person is like breaking it while alive. This hadith shows that the body retains dignity even after the soul departs. The washing is therefore performed with utmost care, modesty, and gentleness. Those who are chosen to wash the body are usually close family members of the same gender, or pious individuals trusted by the family. The significance of the washing lies in both its symbolism and its practical reality. On one level, it is a ritual act of purification. Just as Muslims purified themselves with ablution before prayer in life, in death too they are washed to meet their Lord in a state of purity. On another level, it is a final act of service from the living to the deceased. The ones performing the washing are rewarded by Allah for their patience and compassion, while also reminded of their own mortality. Islamic history provides many touching examples of this practice. When the Prophet Muhammad's own daughter, Zainab, passed away, women from the community gathered to wash her body. The Prophet himself instructed them on how to perform the ghusl, guiding them step by step. He advised that she be washed an odd number of times, beginning with the right side and using water mixed with leaves of the lote tree, a natural cleanser. This moment shows how even the family of the Prophet was honored in the same way as all Muslims, with simplicity and dignity. The washing of the body also represents a bridge between this world and the next. For the deceased, it is the last touch of care from loved ones. For the living, it is a powerful reminder that they too will one day be washed and carried to the grave. This awareness is meant to soften hearts, reduce attachment to worldly pride, and encourage preparation for the hereafter through good deeds. In many Muslim communities, the process begins in a special place within the mosque or at home, where privacy can be maintained. The area is cleaned, and the body is placed on a table or a surface prepared for the washing. Those present ensure that modesty is observed at all times. The private parts of the deceased are kept covered, and the body is never left exposed unnecessarily. Every action reflects the values of Islam: mercy, respect, and purity. The ritual also carries a deep spiritual symbolism. Just as the body was washed at birth to welcome it into this world, so too is it washed at death to prepare it for the next world. It is a cycle of purity, a reminder that we come from Allah pure and must return to Him pure. The act of washing reconnects the soul's journey to its Creator with the physical reality of the body. The scholars of Islam have agreed on the obligation of washing the dead, except in certain cases such as a martyr who dies in battle for the sake of Allah. The martyr is buried in the state in which he or she died, without washing, as a sign of honor. For all others, however, washing remains a communal obligation, known as fard kafaya. This means if some members of the community perform it, the responsibility is lifted from everyone else. But if no one performs it, the entire community is considered sinful. This ruling highlights how crucial the act is in Islamic law and practice. The emotions of those present during the washing are often heavy, but Islam transforms this grief into worship. Every step is an act of ibadah. The water poured over the body, the hands that carefully wash, and the hearts that silently pray are all connected in a chain of devotion. This is why the Prophet described attending funerals and helping in the washing and burial as acts of immense reward. Those who serve the deceased in this way are promised blessings and forgiveness. Part of the beauty of this practice is its simplicity. Unlike many cultures where extravagant rituals are performed around death, Islam keeps the process straightforward. The washing requires only clean water, natural substances like lote leaves or camphor if available, and a shroud of simple white cloth. This simplicity removes burden from families and ensures that the focus remains on spirituality rather than worldly display. The beginning of this process, which we are focusing on in this first part, shows how Islam honors both the deceased and the living. It teaches patience, responsibility, humility, and awareness of the hereafter. Each time a Muslim is washed, an entire community is reminded of its duty to care for one another, not only in life but even after death. The step-by-step process of washing the dead in Islam after the initial moments of death. When the family has closed the eyes of the deceased, covered the body, and prepared the place for washing, the community turns to one of the most important responsibilities, performing the Ghusl, or ritual washing of the body. This act is not only a physical cleansing but also a sacred duty rooted in the commands of Allah and the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad. It is a duty of care, mercy, and respect, ensuring that the believer is returned to their Lord in a state of dignity and purity. Islam has preserved detailed instructions on how this washing should be performed, passed down from the Prophet and his companions. These instructions ensure that the process is done with respect, modesty, and in accordance with Islamic principles. The scholars of fiqh have explained these steps in their books, and though small differences exist among schools of thought, the essence remains the same. The following is the general step-by-step process that Muslims around the world follow when washing the deceased. Choosing the washers. The first step is to select those who will wash the body. According to Islamic teachings, the washer should be a trustworthy, pious Muslim who understands the rulings of Ghusl al-Mayyit. For a male, men are chosen to perform the washing, and for a female, women are chosen. The only exception is between husband and wife, who may wash one another. The Prophet permitted this when he told Aisha that if she passed away before him, he would wash her, and she could do the same for him. This shows that spouses are permitted, though the general rule is same gender. It is important that those who wash the deceased maintain privacy, respect, and confidentiality. If they notice anything unpleasant on the body, such as a physical condition or sign, they should never expose it. Instead, they should keep it secret as an act of trust. On the other hand, if they witness something beautiful, like a smiling face or fragrance, they may share it as a sign of Allah's mercy. This principle protects the dignity of the deceased and keeps the act honorable. Preparing the place. The washing is usually performed in a private room, within a mosque, or at the home of the deceased if possible. The place must be clean, with flowing water available. A raised platform or table is often used so that the washers can perform the task easily. A clean sheet is laid, and all necessary items are prepared in advance. These items typically include clean water, sometimes warm water if needed, powdered leaves of the lote tree or other natural cleansers, camphor for the final rinse, and gloves or cloths for handling the body, covering the area before the washing begins. The private parts of the body are covered with a cloth. This covering remains throughout the process to preserve modesty. The area of a male, from the navel to the knees, is never exposed, and the same rule applies for females with their respective modesty guidelines. The washers take extreme care to ensure that modesty is preserved. As the Prophet emphasized dignity for the deceased, beginning with intention, the washing begins with niyyah, the intention to perform the ghusl of the deceased, for the sake of Allah. This intention is not spoken aloud, but made in the heart. The washers remind themselves that this act is an ibadah, a worship, and that they are fulfilling a communal obligation on behalf of the entire Muslim community. Istinja and cleaning. The first practical step is to clean the impurities from the body. The washers, using gloves or a cloth, gently clean the private parts of the deceased without exposing them. This is done with care and respect, ensuring that any impurities are removed. The body is then positioned slightly elevated so that waste can be drained if present. This step mirrors the way a living Muslim cleanses themselves for purity, showing that the rules of cleanliness remain even after death. Performing wudu after the initial cleaning. The washers perform wudu for the deceased in the same way a living Muslim performs ablution before prayer. The mouth and nose are cleaned with a damp cloth or moistened cotton, without pouring water directly to avoid discomfort. The face is washed, then the arms, head and feet, all in accordance with the Sunnah. This step symbolizes that the deceased is being prepared for their final prayer, the janazah, and ultimately to stand before Allah. Washing the body after wudu. The full washing begins. The body is washed starting from the right side, then the left, beginning with the upper parts and then the lower. Water mixed with lote tree leaves or soap is used to gently cleanse the body. The Prophet instructed that the washing should be done an odd number of times, 3, 5, or 7, depending on need. If after 3 washes the body is clean, it may stop there. If more are required, it continues until clean, always finishing on an odd-numbered dot during the washing. The hair is also cleaned. For men, the beard is washed and combed gently. For women, the hair is washed, combed, and then braided into 3 braids and placed behind her. This practice was instructed by the Prophet when his daughter was washed, showing his personal care for the detail and dignity of the process. Adding camphor on the final wash. Camphor or a similar substance is added to the water. Camphor has a pleasant fragrance and a cooling effect, helping preserve the body and giving a sense of freshness. This final rinse symbolizes that the deceased is now fully purified and ready for the next stage of the funeral rites. Drying and preparing for shrouding after the washing is complete. The body is gently dried with clean towels. The washers are careful not to handle the body roughly, but with the same respect as if the person were alive. Once dried, the body is wrapped in a clean sheet temporarily before being transferred to the place where the shroud, or kafan, will be applied. Spiritual reflections during the washing, while the steps above describe the physical process. The washing of the deceased is also a spiritual experience. Those who perform it are constantly reminded that one day they too will be washed by others. The softness of the skin, the stillness of the body, the reality of death all strike the heart deeply. Many who have washed the dead testify that it changes their outlook on life, reminding them of the temporary nature of the world and the certainty of the hereafter. The Prophet encouraged Muslims to attend funerals and take part in these rites precisely for this reason. He said that visiting the graves and remembering death helps to soften the heart and detach it from worldly illusions. In washing the deceased, Muslims are not only serving their brother or sister, but also serving their own souls by preparing for the day when they will lie in the same position. Stories from the Sunnah Islamic history records many beautiful examples of how the Prophet and his companions performed this ritual. When his daughter Kulthum passed away, women from the Ansar washed her body under his instruction. He guided them to use water mixed with lote leaves and to wash her 3 or 5 times as needed. He then gave them his own cloth to use as part of her shroud, showing his humility and personal care. When the great companion Mus'ab ibn Umair was martyred in battle, his body was prepared with what little cloth was available. Though resources were scarce, the companions still observed the principles of respect and modesty. This shows that the essence of the washing and shrouding is not luxury, but simplicity and sincerity. The role of the community. The washing of the dead is not the responsibility of the family alone. It is a communal obligation, meaning that the wider Muslim community must ensure it is done. This practice reflects the unity of Muslims, that in life and in death, the community stands together. No Muslim should be abandoned in death, no matter their status or wealth. Whether rich or poor, known or unknown, every believer deserves the same respect and the same rights. Lessons for the living. The process of washing the dead carries countless lessons for the living. It teaches humility, reminding us that the body we care so much for will one day be lifeless and dependent on others. It teaches compassion, showing us the importance of caring for our brothers and sisters even after they pass away. It teaches unity, as the community comes together to fulfill a duty that brings reward for all. Above all, it teaches preparation, urging every Muslim to live in such a way that when their time comes, their washing will be a moment of dignity and honor. The shrouding and funeral. Prayer in Islam. Once the deceased has been washed with gentleness and care, the next sacred duty begins. This stage is known as kaifan, the shrouding of the body in plain white cloth. The shroud is not only a garment for burial, but also a powerful symbol of equality, humility, and the eternal journey toward Allah. After shrouding, the funeral prayer or Salat al-Janazah is performed. Together, these acts prepare the believer for the final stage, the burial, which will be covered later. The shrouding of the body is a deeply moving moment for the family and community. It marks the transition from washing, which purifies, to covering, which provides dignity and honor. In life, people wear different clothes that represent wealth, status, or culture, but in death, all Muslims are wrapped in the same simple white shroud. This moment erases worldly differences and reminds the living that all stand equal before Ali in the hereafter. The kaffin, shrouding the body, the shroud used for men and women, has a slightly different form, though the principle remains the same: modesty and simplicity. For men, the kafan usually consists of 3 pieces of white cloth. For women, it is 5 pieces, covering the body more fully to maintain modesty. These cloths are made of plain fabric without decoration or stitching. The Prophet Muhammad instructed that shrouds should be simple and sufficient, avoiding extravagance. The process begins by laying the shroud out flat, one piece on top of the other. The washed body is gently placed upon it, always with care and respect. Before wrapping, perfume may be applied to the body in places where prostration touched the ground during prayer, such as the forehead, nose, hands, knees, and feet. This symbolizes the honor of a life spent in worship. The shroud is then wrapped around the body, starting with the left side and then the right, ensuring that the body is completely covered. For men, the 3 cloths are wrapped one by one, then secured with simple knots or strips of cloth. For women, the 5 pieces include an extra head cover and chest wrap, ensuring full modesty. Once wrapped, the deceased is ready for the janazah prayer. The shrouding reminds the living that all material possessions are left behind. No jewelry, luxury clothing, or wealth accompanies the deceased into the grave. The only provision taken is the record of deeds, good and bad, which will be weighed on the day of judgment. This lesson is powerful, urging every Muslim to invest in good deeds rather than worldly pride. The funeral prayer. Salat al-Janazah. After a body has been shrouded, it is taken to the mosque or an open area where the funeral prayer will be performed. This prayer is unique in Islam. Unlike the 5 daily prayers, the janazah prayer has no bowing or prostration. Instead, it is a collective supplication for the forgiveness and mercy of Allah upon the deceased. The Prophet Muhammad taught that offering the funeral prayer is a right of every Muslim upon another Muslim. It is a communal obligation, just like washing and shrouding. Performing Salat al-Janazah carries immense reward, not only for the deceased but also for those who participate. The Prophet said that whoever attends the funeral prayer earns a reward equal to 1 mountain of good deeds, and whoever attends the burial earns 2 mountains of reward. The prayer is usually led by an imam, with rows of Muslims standing behind. The body is placed at the front, with the imam positioned near the head if the deceased is a man, and near the middle if the deceased is a woman. The congregation stands respectfully, facing the Qibla. The janazah prayer consists of 4 takbirs. After the first takbir, Surah al-Fatiha is recited silently. After the second takbir, the congregation sends blessings upon the Prophet, as in the tashahhud. After the third takbir, supplication is made for the deceased. asking Allah to forgive their sins, have mercy upon them, and admit them into paradise. After the fourth takbir, a brief prayer is made before the Imam ends with taslim, the final salutation. The supplications used in the janazah prayer are filled with mercy. The believers ask Allah to forgive the deceased, to widen their grave, to wash them with water, snow, and hail, to cleanse them from sins as a white garment is cleansed from dirt, and to admit them among the righteous in paradise. These prayers demonstrate the love and compassion of the Muslim community, as they plead for their brother or sister at a time when the deceased can no longer act for themselves. The emotional power of the janazah, funeral prayer, is not only for the deceased, but also for the living. Standing in rows, Muslims are reminded of their own mortality. They realize that one day they too will lie before the community, dependent on the prayers of others. This awareness softens hearts, encourages repentance, and strengthens the bonds of the community. For the family, the janazah prayer is both a comfort and a reminder. It comforts them to see the support of their fellow Muslims, who come together to pray for their loved one. It reminds them that death is not abandonment, but a passage into Allah's mercy. The Prophet said that when a group of Muslims pray sincerely for the deceased, Allah accepts their intercession. Historical examples of janazah from the earliest days of Islam. The janazah prayer was an essential part of Muslim life. When the Prophet's companion Najashi, the ruler of Abyssinia, passed away, the Prophet performed the funeral prayer for him in absentia, as his body was far away. This shows that even when the deceased cannot be present, prayers can still be offered. When the Prophet himself passed away, the companions prayed over him in groups without an imam, each offering their supplications individually. This unique moment demonstrated the immense respect and love they had for him, and it highlighted the central role of Salat al-Janazah in Islamic tradition. Lessons from the shrouding and prayer. The shrouding and janazah prayer together teach profound lessons. The kafan strips away all worldly differences, leaving only purity and humility. The janazah prayer emphasizes the power of collective supplication, showing that in death, the community stands together to ask Allah's mercy for one of its members. These acts remind Muslims to prepare for their own deaths by living righteous lives and building good deeds that will benefit them in the hereafter. Another lesson is the importance of simplicity. While many cultures around the world attach wealth and extravagance to death, Islam insists on plain shrouds and simple prayers. The Prophet himself was shrouded in 3 simple cloths with no shirt or turban, showing that even the Messenger of Allah chose humility in death. This example guides Muslims to focus on spirituality rather than material display. The role of family and community during these rites. The family plays a central role. They witness the shrouding, participate in the prayers, and feel the weight of their loss. Yet they are supported by the wider community, which attends the prayer, offers condolences, and provides assistance. This reflects the beauty of Islamic brotherhood and sisterhood, where no one is left to face grief alone. The community's participation also fulfills the communal obligation, ensuring that the deceased receives their rights. Even if the family is small or far from their homeland, the Muslim community gathers around them, providing the same dignity to every believer. Spiritual reflections. The shrouding and janazah prayer open a door for reflection. For the one being buried, these acts are the last services done on their behalf. For those attending, they are reminders that life is short, wealth is temporary, and deeds are eternal. Each takbir in the janazah prayer echoes the greatness of Allah, reminding the living that the Creator is above all worldly matters. Each supplication for forgiveness reminds the attendees to seek forgiveness for themselves before their own day arrives. The white shroud is a silent sermon. It speaks without words, telling every observer that nothing of this world is permanent. It shows that the king and the beggar, the scholar and the laborer, the old and the young, all return to Allah in the same way. It calls the heart to humility and the soul to preparation, the final journey of the soul and lessons from washing the dead. Washing of a Muslim's body is not merely an act of physical cleansing, but a profound ritual that symbolizes the journey of the soul from this world to the hereafter. Once the ghusl is complete and the shrouding in the white kafan has been performed, the family and the community gather to offer the janazah prayer. This prayer is unique because it contains no bowing or prostration. Instead, it consists of standing and making supplications for the deceased, asking Allah to forgive their sins, expand their grave, and grant them mercy. The janazah prayer is a reminder to the living that they too will one day be carried to the grave, and that the prayers of others will follow them. For the deceased, it is an immense mercy, because every person who participates in the janazah prayer intercedes for them. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said that if 40 people pray for the forgiveness of a Muslim, Allah accepts their intercession. After the prayer, the body is carried to the graveyard. The Prophet advised that the funeral procession should be carried quickly but with dignity. The companions of the Prophet would describe how silent and reflective the walk was, as if everyone was reminded of their own destiny. The body is lowered into the grave gently, with the head turned towards the Qibla, facing the direction of the Kaaba in Makkah. At this moment, the close relatives often shed tears, but they are reminded not to cry excessively or wail. For the Prophet taught that patience and acceptance are better than lamentation, as the soil is placed over the body. The living say words of remembrance, asking Allah to grant the deceased firmness in answering the questions of the grave. It is believed that when the people leave the graveyard, the angels Munkar and Nakir approach the soul in the grave and ask 3 questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who is your prophet? For the righteous, the answers come easily. For others, the trial is difficult that the washing of the body, the shrouding, the prayer, and the burial are all stages that remind both the deceased and the living of the temporary nature of this life. Each step is designed to turn the heart towards the hereafter, to realize that wealth, power, and status no longer matter. What remains are deeds, faith, and the mercy of Allah. Families often find comfort in knowing that their loved one was treated with respect and dignity during the final moments. The act of washing is performed with gentleness and care, reflecting the honor that Islam gives to every human being, even after death. For those who participate in the washing, it is a deeply humbling experience. Many narrations from the companions describe how the act of preparing a body for burial softened their hearts and reminded them to prepare for their own death. Story of washing the dead body in Islam does not end with the burial. Islam encouraged the family to continue praying for the deceased, to give charity on their behalf, and to remember them with kindness. It is believed that the prayers of a righteous child can continue to benefit the deceased parent long after they have passed away. Similarly, knowledge that a person leaves behind, or a charitable act such as building a mosque or digging a well, continues to bring them reward even in the grave. Thus, The washing of the body is not only the beginning of the journey to the hereafter, but also a reminder for the living to invest in actions that will benefit them when they too are placed in the earth. Every moment in the washing process carries symbolism. The clean water reminds one of the purity of the soul. The white shroud reflects equality and simplicity, and the janazah prayer reflects community and brotherhood. The lowering of the body into the grave reminds everyone that life is temporary, and that the hereafter is eternal. The companions of the Prophet would often attend funerals not only to honor the deceased but to reflect on their own mortality. It is narrated that when Umar ibn al-Khattab stood at a grave, he would cry and say, "O son of Khattab, one day it will be you." This reflection is the true wisdom behind the washing and burial of the dead. It connects the living to the reality of death and pushes them to live a life of righteousness. In conclusion, the washing of the dead body in Islam is a sacred act that encompasses mercy, respect, and preparation for the hereafter. It reflects the unity of the Muslim community, the dignity of human life, and the reminder that death is not the end, but the doorway to a greater existence. Each person who witnesses or participates in this process is given a chance to renew their faith, to think about their own life, and to prepare for the inevitable meeting with Allah. For the deceased, it is the final farewell to this world and the beginning of the eternal journey, where deeds and faith become their only companions. The end.